Welcome back to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're here today because we're going to completely demystify the biology of brain fats. For decades, we've been conditioned by diet culture to believe that all fat is just bad, something to be aggressively avoided at all costs. But today, we're going to completely rethink that stigma by looking at the hard science. So let's jump right in. Get ready for this, because here's a shocking little anatomical fact that catches almost everyone off guard. The human brain, literally the most complex organic machine in the known universe, is nearly 60% fat. Crazy, right? Now, historically, the medical community actually kind of ignored this fact. They operated under the assumption that dietary fat had very little influence on the brain itself. But modern research has completely shattered that assumption. We now know that the fats you consume, they don't just sit there. They are among the most crucial molecules in your body. They literally dictate your brain's structural integrity and its overall cognitive performance. All right, moving on to Section 1, Understanding Essential Fatty Acids. So to figure out exactly what these fats actually are and where they come from, here's our baseline definition. When we talk about these brain-building fats, we're talking about essential fatty acids, or EFAs. And I really want to emphasize that word essential. Our human bodies literally lack the specific tools, the desaturates enzymes, required to synthesize these specific omega-3 and omega-6 polyunsaturated fatty acids from scratch. Because we cannot make them internally, getting them from the food we eat is an absolute biological necessity. There's no way around it. Now, the metabolic pathway for essential fatty acids is fascinatingly complex. Basically, when you consume parent essential fatty acids like alpha-linolenic acid, or ALA for short, your body has to put them through this highly complex desaturation process to convert them into usable long-chain forms like EPA and DHA. But hey, here's the catch. This internal conversion process, it's incredibly inefficient in us healthy adults. Metabolic biochemists calculate that when you ingest ALA, your body successfully converts less than 5% of it into EPA, and less than 0.5% actually makes it all the way to DHA. Because of this massive bottleneck, our adult brains are highly reliant on getting preformed DHA directly from our diets. Which brings us to Section 2, Builders and Messengers. So what do these long-chain molecules actually do once they make it up into your brain? Well, essential fatty acids essentially pull double duty. On one hand, they are literal, physical, architectural blocks for our brain cells, the structural builders. But on the other hand, they're highly active cellular communicators. They act as messengers that constantly respond to stimulation, stress, or injury. Let's break down that structural side first. Fatty acids comprise about 50% of your neuronal membranes, and they make up a staggering 70% of the lipids in the myelin sheath. That's the protective coating insulating your nerve fibers. And this brilliantly illustrates why they're so vital. They maintain membrane fluidity. Instead of your cell walls being stiff and rigid, EFAs keep them nice and fluid, which allows your nerve cells to easily carry out their normal functions without taking damage or dying off. But they don't just build a house, right? They also act as the emergency response team. As chemical messengers, they influence the synthesis of key neurotransmitters, like dopamine. When a cell sends out a call to action, these fats are converted into molecules like prostaglandins, which manage your body's inflammatory and immune responses. They even create compounds like neuroprotectin D1, which actively fights off oxidative stress and prevents cellular death. Talk about a multitasker. Section 3, the mental health connection. So, what exactly happens to us when our minds run low on these vital lipid supplies? Well, the impact is chronological, and it spans our entire lives. During the fetal and infant stages, EFAs are ferried from the mother to build the very foundation of the baby's brain and visual cortex. Moving right into childhood, a proper supply is linked to hitting key motor and communication milestones. And then, as we reach middle age and transition into our senior years, a deficiency in these fats becomes deeply correlated with accelerated cognitive decline. In fact, observational studies and clinical trials have impartially linked an imbalance or a severe deficiency of omega-3s to a startling array of neuropsychiatric conditions. The research clearly points to connections with dementia, Alzheimer's disease, major depressive disorder, postpartum depression, bipolar disorder, and even schizophrenia. The depletion of EPA and DHA in the brain tissue of patients with some of these conditions is consistently documented across the scientific literature.
Just consider the sheer gravity of this research finding. Studies analyzing middle-aged populations have found that the individuals who exhibited the most impaired cognitive functions were consistently those with the lowest habitual intake of DHA and EPA. Protecting your brain health in your 40s and 50s with the right fats is absolutely critical for defending against severe memory loss in your 70s and 80s.
Let's look at why this is happening in Section 4, the modern diet and balance. If these fats are so essential, why are so many people deficient today? Well, it comes down to a massive evolutionary shift in how humans eat. Evolutionary biologists and metabolic experts estimate that ancient ancestral human diets contained a perfectly even ratio of omega-6 fatty acids to omega-3 fatty acids, a beautiful, balanced 1-to-1 ratio. Now contrast that with our stark modern reality. Because of the explosion of processed vegetable oils and major changes in livestock feed, the average American diet has wildly skewed this ratio. We're now looking at an intake ratio of roughly 20-to-1, heavily favoring omega-6. So here is the absolutely crucial point. It's not just about eating more fat. It's about balance. While omega-6s are also essential, having way too much of them, specifically arachidonic acid, actually promotes highly inflammatory substances in the body, like prostaglandin E2. And if you don't have enough omega-3s to counter that response, you end up with chronic cellular inflammation. Restoring this dietary balance is an absolute biological necessity. Which leads us to our final section, Section 5, Feeding Your Mind. Knowing all of this, how do we actually fix it? Well, to correct the modern imbalance, we really need to be mindful of our ingredients. Omega-6s are super abundant in common vegetable oils like corn, safflower, and sunflower oils, which are heavily used in processed foods. To balance that out, we need to intentionally increase our omega-3 sources. This means reaching for oily cold water fish like salmon, mackerel, and sardines. Or, for plant-based sources, things like flaxseed, walnuts, and especially seaweed or algae oil, which can actually provide that elusive preformed DHA we talked about. This quote from the researchers literally perfectly encapsulates our explainer today, because our biology fundamentally relies on these molecules to function, and because we can't magically synthesize them out of thin air, curating your diet isn't just some casual lifestyle choice. It is a non-negotiable daily task for lifelong brain health and cognitive performance. Which leaves us right here. Your brain is a physical structure, and it is quite literally built from the fats you decide to eat. Are you feeding it inflammatory oils, or are you giving it the premium omega-3 building blocks it's begging for? So I'll leave you with this to reflect on. What are you building your brain with today? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.